My brother is the Buddhist insider of J-City's elite circle. His Cheongsam girlfriend cried and said I bullied her. In order to get back at her, my brother forcibly shaved my head and forced me to kneel before the Buddha to atone. I was taken away and tortured, and he just watched from the side, natural-born troublemaker, reaping what you sow, until I went insane, my body covered in sores, and died in the hospital. I then realized that I was the villainous second female lead in a noble family sweet romance novel. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to 3 years ago, the day I had my head shaved. My brother was holding a pair of scissors, his face cold. "Ineen, you have to pay the price for your mistakes." I grabbed the scissors directly and aimed it at his throat, laughed. "Yes, brother, when you make a mistake, you have to pay the price." 1. On the 59th day in the hospital, my body emitted an extremely terrifying smell. Outside the hospital room, several nurses were discussing the hot topic on social media. The Buddhist insider of J-City's elite circle Lu Zhuanzhou's century wedding banquet with the popular star Lin Bailu. I heard that Lu Zong is completely smitten with Lin Bailu, even giving her the Buddhist beads. He never left his side since he was 18. Is the person lying in the hospital room not Lu Zong's sister? Shu, speak quietly. I heard she did a lot of bad things, even not recognizing her own brother. Lu Zong specifically ordered that only her life needs to be kept, no painkillers at all. My whole body was rotting, and I was extremely clear-minded from the pain. That night, under my brother's arrangement, the people who once bullied me pushed the hospital room door with malicious smiles. "Miss Lu, we have many interesting videos with you. Want to watch them?" I was so scared that my mind completely broke down. Staggering and rushing off the bed, I fell from the window. When I opened my eyes again, when a familiar voice, filled with tears and accusation, rang out, "Lu Huanzhou, how could you say you could protect me? Don't you know that your sister was the main perpetrator of the school bullying against me?" The pain of near death still lingered in my body. The scene in front of me suddenly changed from dark to bright. The next moment, I saw Lin Bailu in a light blue cheongsam a few steps away. That pair of eyes, filled with tears, only looked at my brother for a second, then cast a cold gaze upon me. "Lu Xuan, come and apologize." Past memories surged up, like glass fragments piercing into the brain, bringing sharp pain. I pressed my temples, forcing out 3 words from my throat. "Why?" 2. Lin Bailu laughed mockingly. "I already guessed you wouldn't apologize. After all, which murderer would admit to killing someone?" I looked up and stared at her. "You have paranoia. Why don't you just admit it? Who killed anyone? You're still jumping around here, aren't you? Your cheongsam isn't cheap. Why pretend to be a poor but virtuous girl?" The more I spoke, the more angry Lin Bailu's expression became. It's as if I really had bullied her. Lu Huanzhou looked at her, his eyes flickering with a faint sense of sorrow. As in the previous life, he held the scissors and stepped toward me. "Bullying classmates in school, and still refusing to admit it," he said coldly. "Ineen, you have to pay the price for your mistakes. I will torture you, and you can atone for your sins before the Buddha." He looked down at me from above. I thought about the previous life, and that's how he destroyed my hair that I had grown for several years. That month, he forcibly locked me in the temple, and Lin Bailu took away my most important role, and with that role, she won the Best Actress award. Later, I was released, but due to the so-called bullying Black History, with hair that looked like a dog had chewed it, sticking to my head, mocked by the entire network. Under Lu Huanzhou's instruction, my resources were gradually taken away by Lin Bailu. With no way out, I had no choice but to seek out an investor I had known before, but I was drunk and taken away at a banquet, tortured and abused in a basement for 15 days. When those people took me away, Lu Huanzhou was watching from the side. He was twirling his Buddhist beads, expressionless, a born bad seed, reaping what he sowed. Thinking about this, a cold chill suddenly shot up from the base of my spine. I suddenly grabbed the scissors from Lu Huanzhou's hand, pointing the sharp tip at his throat, pulling up the corners of his lips. "Yes, older brother, if you do something wrong, you have to pay the price." The sharp blade of the cold light was less than 10 centimeters from his throat. Lu Huanzhou suddenly frowned. "Lu Xuan, it seems your parents have spoiled you. I gave you a chance, but you wouldn't admit your mistake. Don't blame me for not considering sibling feelings anymore." I coldly laughed. "It's not like you're just getting worked up over a woman, believing whatever she says. Don't talk so nicely. I didn't do it, so I didn't do it." He interrupted me without expression. "Lu Xuan, if it weren't for me, do you think you, this female star, are anything at all?" 3. Saying that, he left with Lin Bailu. That very night when they left, I received a call from my agent. She was panicking on the phone. "Shuin, did you fight with your brother? All the endorsements we have suddenly want to terminate the contracts, and the movie that director Lon had promised last month is also going to give the female lead role to that Lin Bailu. Why would siblings get to this point? You should go and apologize to Lu Zong and say a few soft words." "It's no use," I exhaled softly, interrupting her. "Lu Wanzhou is no longer my brother." As I said that, a sudden wave of bitterness and pain swept over my heart. In my previous life, I never knew why Lu Wanzhou changed. In his 18th year, he went to Nangua Temple in the suburbs of the city. After returning, he had a string of prayer beads on his wrist. He became extremely cold and distant. The older brother who once loved me dearly simply disappeared. I tried to act cute and ask him for pocket money, but he twisted the prayer beads and looked at me coldly. Buddha said, "One should not have excessive desires." He no longer played and joked with me. He no longer drove me around for fun. He no longer came with his friends to help me regain my dignity after I lost a fight. Even without any evidence, he believed Lin Bailu's words and condemned me to death. The answer to this question only came after I died in my previous life. It turned out, the world I lived in was a luxury love story novel called Don't Convert for Her. And I was the villainous second female lead in the book. Because I had repeatedly bullied and harassed the female lead, Lin Bailu, I was sent to hell by my older brother who doted on his wife. I told my agent, "Don't worry, I'll figure it out." Then I picked up the scissors again. I checked myself in the mirror and then slashed my shoulder fiercely. The flesh tore open, curled, and warm blood splattered on the mirror. I was in such severe pain that my whole body was convulsing, and I could hardly make a sound. After the intense pain subsided a bit, I calmly took photos of the wound and the blood-stained clothes. Then I sent the photos to my parents who were on vacation. My brother went crazy. He attacked me with a knife for his girlfriend. "Don't contact him first. I'm afraid he might attack me again." My parents replied almost immediately, "Treat the wound first. We'll come back tomorrow." I obediently replied okay, and then had the driver take me to the hospital. While leaving the examination room after having my wound bandaged, I suddenly bumped into someone. "Who is it? Don't you have eyes?" "Lu Shuin." The man in front of me had a face that was extremely aggressive, with eyebrows and eyes that exuded a cold, sharp, and defiant intensity. His gaze was sharp as he looked over. Seeing the blood seeping through the gauze on my shoulder, his expression suddenly changed. "How did you get hurt? Who did this?" "Shiyu. We were neighbors before, and he was also one of Lu Huanzhou's best friends. The two of them once helped me fight. Until he was 18, Lu Huanzhou believed in Buddhism, and he always had a string of prayer beads with him. Shiyu thought he was an idiot and had a falling out with him. Later, the two of them became bitter rivals in business. In order to trouble Lu Huanzhou, Shiyu always opposed him. He really took away a lot of projects, so in the original book, he became the main antagonist later on, almost killing the female lead. I stared at his young and rebellious face, and a sudden thought flashed through my mind. In this world, it's not only Lin Bailu who can twist the truth and act. Thinking about this, I slightly lowered my head, revealing my pale and fragile neck hidden by my hair. Then my eyes became red, and tears fell one after another. "It's my brother. My brother is going to kill me." By the time I said the last 3 words, my voice was choked and unclear, because I secretly exerted force on my arm. The wound bled even more vigorously. Shiryu was staring at me, as if the blood-red color soaked in the gauze had hurt his eyes. "What did you say?" 5. The parking lot near the hospital. I got into Shiryu's Maybach, took off my mask, turned my head to look at him, and said in a low voice, "Thank you, Mr. Sure." He tapped the steering wheel with his fingers, and upon hearing this, let out a sigh. "So polite. What, did I have a falling out with your brother? And all the favors I did for you before are gone?" "I'm not saying that, Shiryu uncle." I leaned over to fasten my seatbelt, and the movement pulled at the wound on my shoulder, making me shudder from the pain. The next second, my breath was suddenly filled with the overwhelming scent of absinthe. Shiyu leaned forward and quickly fastened my seatbelt. Our arms touched as he moved. His higher body temperature transmitted through the thin fabric of our clothes, and I instinctively pulled back a bit. His voice immediately sounded in my ear. "Don't move if you're hurt, okay?" He tapped the steering wheel. "Where to?" "I don't know. I just don't want to go home. I'm afraid my brother will come back. He always believes whatever his girlfriend says." I was originally acting to gain sympathy, but halfway through, I remembered my past life, the half a month I spent locked in a dark and windowless basement, a purgatory of the human world. When they came to the ward with those videos, I jumped from the window, feeling the pain of my bones being shattered. So the second half of the sentence truly carried a deep, bone-chilling fear. He really will kill me. Shiyu heard the tremble in my voice. His originally sharp gaze swept over me, but for a moment, it softened like dissolving mist. He paused for a moment, then reached out, placing his hand over my cold wrist, and squeezed it. I'm here. He won't, Lu Shuin, believe me. 6. He started the car and drove towards his house. The rest of the journey, no one spoke. I huddled in the passenger seat, getting drowsy from the rising effects of the medicine. In a daze, I even dreamed of when I was 14. I got into a fight to stand up for a girl who was being extorted for protection money. I came home with a bruised face and wanted to ask my older brother to take revenge for me, but I ran into Shiryu instead. Lu Huanzhou asked me to tell you he's staying at school for rehearsal today. He was hunched over his jacket, his eyes as cold as ice. It's fine. Taking revenge or finding a place to settle things is the same for anyone, compared to Lu Huanzhou, who was always quiet and loved reading books, delving into financial knowledge since a young age. Shiyu was like a defiant little wolf. All the people around his age were made to submit to him. He casually picked up a baseball bat and found those hooligans in the smoky billiard room. Bro, lend me a light. 2 cigarettes touched, lit, and then were forcefully pressed against the man's face. With the man's scream, he laughed, then threw away the cigarette butt. Sorry, my sister doesn't like me smoking. I watched Shiyu holding that baseball bat, beating those people until they were covered in bruises, and ran away in panic. Then he went out and found me by the window in the corridor. I got you revenge. He raised an eyebrow. How is it, Shiyu brother? Is he more reliable than your own brother? Later, Lu Huanzhou came back from school and heard about this. He looked at Shiyu with a calm expression. Only people with simple minds and strong bodies think about solving problems with force. Shiyu didn't get angry. He just smiled and turned to look at me. Inin, Lu Huanzhou is being rude to you. It's very unfair. Lu Huanzhou let out a light laugh. How could my sister be the same as some people? Saying that, he closed his computer and stood up. This isn't over yet. You don't need to worry about the rest. A few days later, he used some methods to send those hooligans to jail. I opened my eyes and felt a bit of moisture at the corner of my eye. I looked around and found the car parked in front of Shiyu's building. He was no longer in the car. I slightly turned my gaze and saw him leaning against the car, as if smoking a cigarette. Shiyu Sr. I opened the car door and called out, my voice a bit hoarse. Shiyu turned around and extinguished the cigarette in his hand. You're awake. What did you dream about? I exhaled slowly and looked straight into his eyes. I had a dream about the year I was 14, when you fought for me. The excuse was that my sister didn't like me smoking. He suddenly froze. His ears gradually turned a noticeable shade of red. I don't have an older brother anymore. Shiyu, would you still treat me like a younger sister? Saying that, I gently tugged at his sleeve. I slightly tilted my head up. I presented my face in the most pitiful and vulnerable way possible to him. I am a trained actor, and I have full confidence in my acting skills. However, Shiyu just stared at me. A moment later, his eyes, which were usually a bit carefree, showed an inexplicably dark emotion. I felt uneasy, wondering if my acting wasn't good enough and he had seen through my pretense of being pitiful. He suddenly spoke. Of course. I let out a sigh of relief and followed Shiyu to his house. After walking a few steps, he suddenly stopped. He slightly turned his head. His gaze seemed to fall on my face, yet also appeared to be lost in the distant lights. He said, if one day, you don't want to be my little sister anymore, that's okay too. 7. That night, I slept in the guest room of Shiyu's house. I am not unfamiliar with this place, because when he bought this house and decided on the renovation style, he asked for my and my brother's opinions. At that time, Lu Huanzhou hadn't become a fanatic who never lets go of his Buddhist beads. He was reading the company's financial report from last quarter, and said calmly, what does your house renovation have to do with my sister? Whenever it comes to something about me, my brother and Shiyu can't stand each other. Shiyu is used to it, and he doesn't get angry, just lazily laughed. It has to do with it. This bedroom is for Enin to live in. Of course it has to be done according to her preferences. So this bedroom, floral wallpaper, cream-colored wardrobe. It's exactly the style I liked when I was 15, unfortunately. The house wasn't finished decorating. Lu Huanzhou went to Nangua Temple, and after coming back, everything changed. 2 months later, he broke up with Shiyu. I never came here again. Now, lying in the bedroom filled with a faint orange scent, Even though the wound on my shoulder was still painfully tearing, I still fell into deep sleep with the rising drowsiness. 8. The next day, my parents came back. They called me immediately, telling me to go home with Lu Huanzhou. I'll go in with you. When we arrived home, Shiyu didn't leave, but instead got out of the car with me. Lu Huanzhou is a fool right now. I'll go with you for your safety. As soon as I entered, I saw Lu Huanzhou sitting on the sofa. He was dressed in a suit, and his expressionless face looked surprisingly serious. Lin Bailu was sitting next to him, still in a cheongsam with snowflake and pear blossom embroidery, her eyes slightly red. I've heard everything Lu Huanzhou said about yesterday, my father said. He said he just wanted to give you a lesson and didn't actually hurt you. My tears immediately fell down, sobbing. I said, I already guessed he wouldn't admit it. After all, which murderer would admit to killing someone? Lu Huanzhou was turning his prayer beads in his hands, looking at me with a cold and sharp gaze. Lying through your teeth, you really are a bad person. TCH, Shiyu suddenly took a step forward, blocking my way. Lu Huanzhou, you idiot. You've been turning that broken beads for 7 years. Is that how the Buddha would let you say your own sister? I don't have such a sister. Enough, my father suddenly spoke, interrupting us. Are you trying to make a fool of yourself in front of outsiders? Don't you feel ashamed? When he said this, his sharp eyes swept over Shiyu and Lin Bailu sitting on the sofa. There was a flicker of dissatisfaction in his eyes. Huanzhou, even if Yining was once unreasonable and bullied you, your brother, it's not a reason for you to take a knife to your own sister. I instinctively tried to argue. I didn't bully. And Yining, my father looked at me again, his tone unyielding. Your brother wasn't intentional. I'll have him apologize to you and transfer the villa at Rose Mountain to your name. Siblings fighting, if it gets out, won't be good for any of you. This matter ends here. 9. In the original story, Lu Huanzhou sent me into hell for Lin Bailu. He initially kept it a secret from the family, until I died. He could no longer keep it hidden. Then he fabricated a bunch of baseless charges against me. He said I was promiscuous, got into too much trouble, and was approached by someone, which scared me into jumping off the building. My father believed him. Later, he died from a heart attack due to his opposition to his marriage with Lin Bailu. Even my mother was confined at home by him. His actions were called severe measures. A satisfying outcome. Readers said he was originally a compassionate monk, yet he was willing to fall into darkness for Lin Bailu, which was too fascinating. Their glorious love bloomed on my flesh and blood. I expected my father wouldn't believe Lu Huanzhou, because in his eyes, I have always been delicate. Even a small scrape on my wrist would make me cry. There would be no determination to cut oneself, but I didn't expect, even if I stabbed myself, the punishment it could bring to Lu Huanzhou would only be this little. The wound on my shoulder was still aching slightly. I looked at my father, feeling cold all over. I opened my mouth but couldn't say anything. Uncle, you're handling this matter really fairly. Shiyu suddenly took my hand that was hanging at my side. The scorching temperature was transmitted over, inheriting from his father. I suppose Lu Huanzhou also learned from you, my father said coldly. What concerns the Lu family is none of your business. Sure family, sure. You tilted his head and let out a cold smile. Is that so? Unfortunately, I was born with a habit of meddling, some justice you can't get back, only I can help her get it. After saying that, he turned around and gently pulled my hand. Yining, let's go. We walked to the door side by side. Suddenly, behind us came Lin Bailu's cold and stubborn voice. Is Mr. Sure really going to take the side of someone who was bullied at school? Bullying. He stopped walking, slightly turned his head, and suddenly smiled. Even if my sister did bully you, it's your own fault. Got it. 10. I really didn't bully her. Thinking about the female protagonist's aura, I was afraid that sure you would believe Lin Bailu's words. Getting into the car, I nervously said, I don't even know her, Mr. Sure you believe me. Sure you suddenly turned around and looked at me. No. You do know her. Do you forget, Yining, that year when you had your 12th birthday party and invited all the girls in the class to your house, except one? I tried to recall, and gradually I began to remember. Are you talking about that girl, Lin Bailu? Shiyu nodded. At that time, I came late because I wanted to buy the chestnut cake you liked. I saw a girl lingering outside your house. I asked her why she didn't go in, and she cried, saying she didn't have your invitation. Maybe she thought you invited all the classmates, but not her. So you were isolating and bullying her. I suddenly didn't know what to say. I did invite her. She herself said she had to help her grandmother with housework and couldn't come. I guess there are people in this world who are good at blaming others for everything. she's always innocent," he said, ruffling my hair. Then he coughed, covering his slightly red earlobe, and started the car. "Don't worry, I'm here." 11. It was just like my past life's memories. While Lu Huanzhou was unrelenting in giving resources to Lin Bailu, he was secretly sending people to deal with me. The black materials about my school bullying spread online and hit the hot search list. Is that true? Isn't she the daughter of the Lu family? The daughter of the family would be the one who bullies people. It said she's Lu Huanzhou's sister. Wow, how could the Buddhist insider of J City's elite circle have such a cruel sister? It said that she was the one who bullied and isolated Lin Bailu before. My reputation has plummeted, and several endorsements and film roles that were once a certainty have now turned to Lin Bailu instead. Fortunately, because my father had warned him, Lu Huanzhou didn't dare to go too far. Shiyu first secured a contract worth hundreds of millions for him, then handed over the high-end jewelry under Shiyu's company for me to endorse. "The nun is too idle, I'll find him something to do," he said, and handed me a document. "These are the lists of the online marketers who spread the rumor about you bullying in school. Have your agent find a lawyer and sue them one by one." I rubbed my reddening eyes. "Thank you, Shiyu. I don't know what I would have done without you." He looked at me intently. After a long silence, he sighed barely perceptibly. Then he said, "Also, about the female lead of 10 Dreams, 9 Piece, Lu Huanzhou invested 40 million and intended to assign that role to his girlfriend, so I added another 40 million to give the director a fair chance to audition for you." 12. At the end of the month, I saw Lin Bailu and Lu Huanzhou again at the audition for 10 Dreams, 9 Piece. Lin Bailu looked at me with disgust. Lu Huanzhou grabbed my wrist and pulled me to the stairwell at the end of the corridor. "Lu Xuyin, I'm giving you one last chance." He looked down at me with a superior expression. "Apologize publicly to Bailu, give up this audition, and go to the Buddha to confess and atone. Otherwise, don't blame me for not being a brother anymore." He didn't hold back at all, and my wrist ached as if my bones were breaking, yet I still looked up and smiled, saying, "Lu Huanzhou, what brotherly feelings do we have? Even you know your Chongsam girlfriend is just a vase, in terms of fair competition. She could never beat me." Lu Huanzhou lowered his face. "You're too full of yourself." I locked eyes with him. "Then let's try. 10 Dreams, 9 Piece is a female lead drama. It's about how the female lead, from a dying beggar in a temple, gradually rises to become the empress. In my previous life, those days before I died, the TV in the hospital room played this movie. Lin Bai's portrayal of the empress always had a cold and stubborn aura. No matter what situation she was in, unyielding, unrelenting, never yielding. But it shouldn't be like this. She should lower her head, apologize, and act pitiful, using all the resources around her. A general's success is built upon the bones of 10,000 soldiers. That position has always been full of difficulties and dangers. She should not have walked up there with her back straight. It should have been a position she crawled to, covered in blood. I have always had confidence in my professional level. That is also my biggest reliance." 13. After the audition, I sat in the limousine. My agent asked me, "How did it go?" I smiled and said, "I'm almost certain. As for acting skills, Lin Bailu will never catch up with me even if she works for 10 more years." I took out my phone to share this news with Shiyu, but he never answered my call. 3 days later, the audition results were out. They finally decided on Lin Bailu as the cast. I couldn't believe it and wanted to go to the banquet to ask the director for an explanation. But when I got to I saw a familiar Maybach from afar. Somebody opened the car door and stepped out with a long leg wrapped in trousers. It was Shiyu. He was dressed in a suit, which was rare for him. I caught up with him, wanting to tell him not to look for the director anymore, that I would handle the rest. I wanted to apologize to him, saying that his 40 million had been in vain, but when I reached the door, I was about to push it open. A voice came from inside. "Sure you is here, he lazily replied, and a second later, suddenly laughed out loud. "Lu Huanzhou, I'm not saying this, your sister is really easy to fool." 14. I stood outside in shock. It was as if someone had fired a shot from the void, hitting me in the chest. A wind passed through the wound of blood-stained flesh, tearing out a sharp pain. I forgot how I walked down the stairs, how I got back into the car and called my agent, telling her, "I think I'll pass on this role, better luck next time." When I came to my senses, the car was already parked in front of Shiyu's building, under a dim street lamp. I don't know how long I had been waiting, but I finally saw the familiar silver-blue Maybach again. The car stopped very close to me. Shiyu got out of the car, came over, opened the door, and sat in the passenger seat. What's wrong with you, Eneen? Why aren't you asleep so late? I turned to him and said, the audition results are out. They chose Lin Bailu, not me. He looked at me with red eyes. Next script, I'll help you again. Will you trick me again for the next script? I suddenly spoke up and cut him off. Actually, I wanted to just knock on the door and go in, but I was scared. I was afraid there would be people I couldn't deal with at the banquet, and you and Lu Huanzhou would just watch as they took me away, thinking about all the days I've been acting pitiful in front of you. How did you secretly laugh at me? I even wanted to block you to avoid humiliating myself, but I still came here because I wanted to hear you say it yourself, even if it was extremely painful. Sure, you never believed in my words from the beginning, did you? He looked at me, and his emotions were like surging waves, rising and receding one after another. In the end, only a dark and solemn silence remained. He said, yes, 15, sure enough. I closed my eyes. Filled with sudden shame and embarrassment, I spoke in a hoarse voice, I'm sorry. It's my fault to want to use you. Before he could finish speaking, Shiyu interrupted. No, you wanted to use me, that's good, he said, suddenly smiling. I never believed a word you said, because I never thought that pitiful look was really you. You should be reckless, brave, fearless, fighting with 7 or 8 people, then coming back to me to help you regain your dignity. You often cry, loudly, without restraint. Never holding my sleeve and asking me if I'm willing to take you as my little sister. I stared blankly at him, listening to him list them one by one, the real me from childhood to now. My vision became blurred, a look of panic suddenly appeared on Shiyu's face. He reached out and wiped my eyelid with his fingertip. Don't cry, Eneen, I was wrong, I should have told you directly. Oh my god, it's all Lu Huanzhou's fault, that idiot. Since he was 18, his mind has been abnormal. Did you hear what I said to him? I grabbed his sleeve to wipe my tears. Yes, I heard you say to him, Lu Huanzhou, your sister is so easy to fool. It was acting. I was acting, sure, you said without thinking. I set up a scheme with someone. My role is now Lin Bailu. But when the filming reaches the halfway point, the truth will come out, and Lu Huanzhou will be in trouble. Her role will then be gone. Eneen, I won't let anyone take your things away. My tears messed up the cuff of his custom-made suit. Sure, you just watched with indulgence. His usually sharp and severe eyes were now filled with complete tenderness. I suddenly realized that 8 years had passed. During these 8 years, because of Lu Huanzhou, I rarely met Shiryu, therefore, I hadn't noticed. The impulsive and rebellious teenager had grown into a mature man who had tempered his sharp edges. The heart in my chest started to beat faster. I sniffed, and spoke in a hoarse voice. Then you should have told me. You haven't contacted me for these days. Shiyu gently raised his hand, paused for a moment, and then brushed my slightly messy hair. Because it's dangerous. If Lu Huanzhou notices anything unusual, it would be me who gets into trouble. I must make him believe that I don't like you, and even hate you. I'm not a professionally trained actor. My acting is not good. Hearing your voice, I might not be able to keep up the act. Our eyes met, and I suddenly realized something. If it's so dangerous, why are you still helping me? Before he could finish speaking, was blocked by the soft and hot lips. Shiyu kissed me with lingering and passionate movements, his lips and tongue slowly grazing the limited space of my breath. So much that my nostrils were filled with his aggressive absinthe perfume. Do you feel it? Because I like you, Eneen. I've never considered you as my sister. If it wasn't for Lu Huanzhou stopping me, I would have confessed my feelings to you when I was 17, 16, in a bedroom filled with citrus fragrance. Shiyu held the hairdryer and patted the spot in front of him. Come here, I'll dry your hair. I waited for him to use a slightly awkward action to dry my hair halfway. Turn off the hairdryer. In the suddenly quiet environment, I felt a thickening of intimacy, quietly wrapping around us. Sure, you. I turned my body, looked up, and looked at him seriously. I have a question for you. What, if one day I really die in Lu Huanzhou's hands, will you avenge me? His eyes were like a frozen lake in winter, looking at me like that, frozen, then broken by the lights and the surging emotions. After a moment, he asked me, Eneen, are you knowing something I don't know? I told Shiryu everything that happened in my previous life. The ultimate pain, even to this day, has turned into nightmares that repeatedly appear at night. I can't sleep. I urgently need an emotional outlet. The days I was locked in the basement, I couldn't tell if it was day or night, so I just counted second by second. I thought I would die there. In fact, it would have been better if I had died there, rather than lingering in the hospital bed. feeling every part of my body rot away so clearly. When they rushed into the hospital room with those videos, I really hated Lu Huanzhou. I hated him so much that if he had been in front of me then, I would have torn his flesh apart with my teeth. Even after my death, it didn't end. Those videos were released, because I was drugged. They all said I was enjoying it, that I had actively played along with everything. I got to the end. My voice trembled violently, and I couldn't continue speaking. Then I was pulled into a warm embrace. Don't say any more. I curled up in his arms, closed my eyes, and murmured, yes, Lu Huanzhou didn't cut me. It was me who made the cut, but even with such a harsh act, it was only enough for him to apologize to me. My acting was clearly better than Lin Bailu's, but the role still belonged to her. The power of the original story was so irresistible. The protagonist's aura so strong. No matter what I did, I could never escape the predetermined ending. My arms held me tighter and tighter, Shiyu's voice trembling as he said, I'm sorry, Inin, it's my fault. I should have come to help you sooner. Actually, it's nothing. My mind was hazy, and even though I hadn't drunk any alcohol, my consciousness felt uncontrollable. I'm telling you all this not because I trust you. Who knows if the things you said to me were part of your plan. It's okay, I recorded every time we met. If you lie to me, I will send these recordings to Lu Huanzhou, and we'll all be in trouble. I lifted my eyes, and in my blurred vision, it was Shiryu's red eyes. It's my fault for not doing well enough to make you fully trust me. He reached out and touched my forehead. You're feverish, Inin, rest first. 17. That night, I had another dream. The dream seemed to be a scene from a past life. Shiryu became the main villain, and in the original story's climax, he kidnapped Lin Bailu. He was sailing on a yacht, and he had bombs tied all over Lin Bailu. Lu Huanzhou, guess, when I press the switch, will your fiancé be blown into pieces? Lu Huanzhou's face turned pale. What do you want? Come at me. Lu is afraid of pain. Don't do this to her. Shiryu, no matter what, we were once friends. Then Shiryu suddenly laughed like a madman. She's afraid of pain. She's more afraid of pain than your so-called virtuous fiancé. Why won't you let her go? Let's die together. Lin Bailu. At that time, it had been a very long time since I died, so Lu Huanzhou didn't even realize who he was talking about. Just as Shiyu lost control of his emotions, he signaled the sniper beside him to aim. Bang, the bullet hit the center of his forehead. 18. I finally remembered. In the original text of Not Returning for Her, Shiyu opposed Lu Huanzhou at all costs because his lover was killed by him. The reason for abducting Lin Bailu was also because he was at his wit's end and couldn't compete with the male lead. But he still wanted him to experience the pain of losing a beloved person. In my memory, Shiyu's personality was not exactly warm or friendly. He had almost no close female friends around him. The only exception was me. But that was all before I was 18. 19. I hurriedly got out of bed, barefoot stepping on the cold floor, and walked through the whole living room. The study door was slightly open, and there was still a light on inside. When I opened the door, Shiyu was on the phone. Yes. The contract will follow the standard format in the industry. His voice seemed to carry a smile, but his eyes were cold. Miss Lin is my brother's girlfriend. How could she be taken advantage of? As he spoke, his fingers idly played with a butterfly knife. The rotating blade reflected the light, revealing a cold, sharp gleam. Okay, let Lu Huanzhou not worry. I know what I'm doing. He hung up the phone and clicked it shut with a sound. When he looked up and saw me standing at the door, slightly out of breath, he suddenly froze. Inin, why aren't you wearing? He didn't finish speaking, and I rushed over, throwing myself into his arms. The wound on my shoulder had not fully healed, but it was just a shallow scar. I collided with his chest, feeling a slight pain. That bit of pain reminded me that I was still alive. I hadn't perished and vanished into the void after that tragic fall in my previous life. After my rebirth, even if everything replayed, my parents favored Lu Huanzhou. I was not as helpless as a floating piece of wood. Shiryu, hold on to me tightly. He obediently wrapped his arms around my waist, not letting me fall. I raised my head and urgently searched for his lips, then kissed them fiercely on. This kiss was hasty and brutal, more like the primal biting of animals. I even tasted a faint trace of blood. Shiyu did not resist, allowing and submitting to all my outbursts. In the end, I pulled his tie and brushed against his rapidly moving Adam's apple. Panting heavily, I called out to him, brother, oh my God. He inhaled sharply, his body leaning back, and said through gritted teeth, Inin, don't play like this. I don't want to. Why don't you want to? I cut him off and moved closer little by little. But I do want to, Shiyu. I want to be sure that you still love me. 20. The sky was bright outside. The sunlight about to enter the room was blocked by thick curtains. A sliver of pale gold slipped through the moving gap and fell on Shiyu's sharp jawline. As he moved, the light spot swayed back and forth. I also rubbed against his cheek like a puppy, nibbling. In a certain moment, he closed his eyes and said in a voice almost begging, "You, relax, Yonko, Oni-san," I said. "I still want to be your sister. It's like this now." Sister, it was strange, as if it had been an extremely intense moment of pleasure. I didn't remember the nightmares from the basement in my past life again. Maybe it was the clean and pure scent of absinthe on Shiyu, which only made me think of the lush, verdant fields in spring. 21. 10 Dreams, 9 started filming smoothly. Just like in my past life, Lu Huanzhou spent money to create enough momentum for Lin Bailu, Reuters, Hot Search, and the Buddhist insider of J-City's elite circle and the love story of the Qipao beauty. Each one is enough for strangers and fans to talk about for a long time. Shiyu opened his phone and showed it to me. The first topic on the Hot Search, #Xianpin. In the video, Lin Bailu was wearing a pure white qipao. Standing under a tree, a shower of pear blossoms fell from the tree. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, and caught a handful of pear blossoms in her hand, scattering them over herself. Then she started to dance gracefully. The camera pulled back, and a few steps away, Lu Huanzhou was staring at her, his eyes full of deep affection. He was wearing a black haute couture suit, with a string of prayer beads on his wrist. The comments section was full of, "Great, perfect, bring the civil affairs office here. I want to see them get married right now." Shiyu raised an eyebrow. 10 seconds, 20 moves, each carefully designed. I wonder, if 17-year-old Lu Huanzhou saw himself doing this now, what would he think? I remained silent for a long time, and asked him, "You say, is my older brother still alive? Even if I were to live again, I still don't know, the current Lu Huanzhou, is he truly someone else, forced by the plot? Even my soul and spirit have been replaced. If my soul was really replaced, is the original me still alive?" Actually, I had already noticed something was wrong a long time ago, Shiyu said, because the original Lu Huanzhou, after knowing that I like you, repeatedly warned me not to tell you my feelings. The traffic outside the window was silent. I seemed to be taken back to the summer 8 years ago by his words. 18-year-old Lu Huanzhou and Shiyu were standing face to face. Lu Huanzhou spoke in a calm tone, "My sister is still young. And I don't want her to be swept up by the feelings of growing up together before she understands anything, confusing what is love and what is illusion. If you truly like her, wait a few more years, and then tell her when she's older." At this point, Shiyu paused for a moment, but I didn't wait for it. The second month, he went to Nangua Temple, and when he came back, he was like he had been bewitched. When we gathered, a useless guy got drunk and made fun of you. If it had been before, Lu Huanzhou would have fought him already. I punched that guy, but he stopped me instead. He said, "It's just a joke." The Buddha said to forgive, and also said that we shouldn't create karmic obstacles for someone unimportant. I said, "Enin is your sister." He said, "What if she is? She's just a flesh and blood person, an illusion." He laughed mockingly. I don't know whether it was Lu Huanzhou or another stranger. In any case, if he himself knew, he would have wanted to commit suicide on the spot. After all, he would never allow anyone to hurt you, let alone himself. 22. For the next half a month, because of Lu Huanzhou's deliberate harassment, and sure you wanted to gain his trust, he couldn't help me. My resources have been lost a lot again. Fortunately, a director I had worked with before, who appreciated my acting, gave me a role as the third female lead. The role isn't too big, and it can be wrapped up in a month. It's exactly the type I'm interested in. A month is enough. I comforted my agent, who looked very discouraged. After a month, some things will become clear. After joining the set, I was busy with filming, and I started messaging Shiyu less frequently. He was very lonely, staying at home alone. He sent me a video in the middle of the night. I only watched for 10 seconds before turning it off, blushing, and sending him a message. "Sure you, are you a pervert?" "I am. What's it to you, Enin? Would you like a pervert?" That afternoon, he finally sent me a message. "The final stage of the net is about to be cast. It's almost over, Enin." I put my phone away and looked at the breathtaking resort mountain scenery. This was the last filming location in my group, but I didn't expect that 10 Dreams, 9 would also film here. While I was changing clothes, I happened to bump into Lin Bailu in a flowing white robe and Lu Huanzhou, who had come to visit her, near the waterfall. Lu Xuan, I had originally wanted to pretend I hadn't seen it, but I was stopped by Lu Huanzhou. I have given you many chances, but you have never shown any remorse. He twisted the Buddhist prayer beads in his hand, looking at me with that annoyingly compassionate and cold expression. From now on, whatever your fate is, it will be your own doing. I stopped in my tracks and turned back to look at him, suddenly laughing. Yes, Lu Huanzhou, whatever your fate is, it will be your own doing. Remember that. 23. Back at the set, I finished my last scene and successfully wrapped filming. After wrapping up, the director insisted on holding a farewell banquet for me, out of courtesy. I drank a few more cups and became a bit dizzy, then went out to call my agent. Let her send her assistant to pick me up. The phone was hung up, and I walked to the window at the end of the corridor to get some cold air to clear my head. My body was getting increasingly hot. It felt like fire was burning inside me, making my steps weak, and I had to lean against the wall. Memories from my past life suddenly came to my mind. It's him again, Lu Huanzhou. He's determined to kill me, even if I was careful not to meet the people from my past life. He would still hire someone to drug me and have those people come after me. I used my trembling hand to take off the brooch, and the tip of the pin pierced my skin, drawing a bloody line. Intense pain gave me a moment of clarity, and I staggered toward the elevator, but as I passed the stairwell, I was pulled in by a suddenly extended hand. The scream about to escape was forcibly muffled by a large hand. Before my heart was devoured by immense despair and panic. I first smelled a familiar absinthe fragrance. My heart, which had been high in the air, seemed to drop down instantly. Sure you. I collapsed in his arm, sobbing. Lu Huanzhou put poison in my drink. My voice was extremely hoarse, and it carried a seductive tone I couldn't even imagine myself having. The back of Shiyu's hand gently pressed against my cheek, cool like a rainstorm in a long drought desert. I know. He picked me up and carried me in his arms. So I'm here, Yining. Lu Huanzhou is done for. A dog in a corner will jump over the wall. I'm just afraid something will happen to you. He originally wanted to take me back, but the resort was far from the city. It would take at least 3 hours to drive back. So finally, Shiyu booked a suite on the top floor. As soon as we entered, I pulled his collar and rolled onto the soft long pile carpet with him. Brother, help me. I clumsily tried to bite his buttons. Shiryu raised his hand to block me, but I bit his fingertip. Take it easy, Onan. He didn't dodge, and even when bitten and bleeding, he didn't so much as flinch, just pulling my hair and placing soft, delicate kisses. It's just getting dark. We still have the whole night ahead of us. The window hadn't rained, but the moon seemed to melt, dripping into the clouds. In the end, every inch of my skin was covered in the scent of absinthe, gradually mixed with my own scent. In a certain moment, they merged and spread out. 24. The next morning, I woke up with a splitting headache. After a few seconds, my memory gradually returned. I just remembered how crazy I was last night. Even the parts of Shiyu's neck that couldn't be covered by his shirt had a blood-clotted tooth mark. He gently touched it with his fingertip and smiled at my apologetic look. I'm happy, Yining. Last night, I think I also dreamed about the past lives you mentioned. Leave a little more marks, so that we can prove I'm yours. It's better than your past life, where I loved you for so many years and no one in the world knew. My past life, I was the notorious villainous second female lead. He was the ruthless and crazy main villain. At that time, neither he nor I could have imagined it. We would have this day. Shiyu picked up the crumpled skirt from the ground and helped me put it on. When we walked out together, we bumped into Lu Huanzhou in the elevator. In front of him, Shiyu affectionately put his arm around my shoulder. I smiled at him. What's wrong, Buddha's disciple? Are you about to face an investigation? It seems you've committed so many illegal acts that even the Buddha can't protect you anymore. Lu Huanzhou's gaze fixed on me, sharp enough to want to kill me on the spot. What's wrong? Did you find out that I wasn't taken to the basement by the people you sent, and are you disappointed? The elevator stopped on the first floor. 2 uniformed law enforcement officers were standing at the door. They nodded politely at Lu Huanzhou, then put handcuffs on him. 25. I opened Weibo and found the names of Lu Huanzhou and Lin Bailu together on the hot search list. Unlike the previous divine couple, this time, 5 consecutive topics were all related to criminal offenses. Hashtag Lu Huanzhou money laundering, hashtag Lu Huanzhou hiring killers, hashtag Lin Bailu fake contracts, hashtag Lin Bailu tax evasion. There's also a very sarcastic one, hashtag the Buddhist insider of J City's elite circle has left the monastic life. Every comment below is full of talented people. No way, sir, Even a Buddhist disciple is money laundering. Maybe the offering wasn't enough. At Lu Huanzhou, what money laundering? Why don't you go begging yourself, useless thing? You have to shave your head to enter the orange. Oh no, now you really became a Buddhist disciple. I was holding my phone, laughing so hard I was falling over in the passenger seat. Soon, the production team of 10 Dreams 9 Piece came out and issued a statement, saying they would terminate the collaboration with Lin Bailu. My agent called me, his voice full of excitement. Shuin, the production team called, they were very humble, saying they invited you to join the shooting of 10 Dreams 9 Piece as the female lead, and you can set your own conditions. There are companies that hadn't collaborated before, but they contacted me again. A day in the spotlight, a day in hell. This circle is just so realistic, but being in it, I've long been accustomed to its nature. At first, I thought Shiyu would be affected inevitably by working with Lu Huanzhou. Unexpectedly, it was his half-brother who was taken away for investigation together. You know, my family situation is very complicated. After my father passed away, she always wanted her son to inherit the family business. When I said these words, Shiyu and I were sitting by the window. He hugged me from behind, and his soft, delicate kisses fell on my shoulder. So, the 40 million for that project, he thought he was cutting me off, and invested it in his own name. Although this was a bit risky, it also solved 2 problems. Let's not talk about that, okay, Inin. His handsome and sharp eyes were tinged with a tempting red from desire. His tone also carried an enticing implication. Show me your hand, help me, okay. 26. After the official start of 10 Dreams 9 Safety, Shiyu went back to the Lu family with me. Since Lu Zhuanzhou's incident, my father looked much older than before. After hearing my words that concealed a soft knife, he remained silent for a long time before asking, "Was this incident related to you?" I smiled and said, "Dad, you got it wrong. My brother died when he was 18. Before he went to Nangue Temple. You disobedient daughter." He slammed the table and coughed violently from anger. This time, my mother, who was usually quiet, spoke up for the first time. "Anyway, my son is already in. Do you want to send my daughter in too? I only have 2 children. You won't let your outside bastard inherit anything from our family." Shiryu stood lazily aside and added at the right moment, "Uncle should clearly know my character. Now that this mess of the Lu family is here, if you hand over everything to Inin, I might be interested in getting involved in this matter." My father finally realized that his authority, which he had never questioned for half his life, now, he was at a loss. 37% of the shares in the Lu family were quickly transferred to me, plus the 5% I already had and the 10% my mother had. I was undoubtedly the new power holder of the Lu group. I've been watching Lu Huanzhou handle things since childhood. These tasks are not too unfamiliar to me. I just have been busy with the filming of 10 Dreams 9 Piece, so I inevitably have to ask Shiyu for help. He proactively brought over a lawyer and signed a management agreement. The procedures that need to be followed still have to be followed. I must make sure my wife is at ease. He smiled and came closer, rubbing his cheek against mine. "Kiss me, wife, I'm going to help you with your work." That afternoon, after the filming ended, the sky had already turned dark. I wrapped myself in a windbreaker, holding a hot water bag, and got into the minivan. The filming location was in the suburbs, and we were heading home. A black car suddenly shot out from the side. The car lights flashed, and the next second, I saw Lu Huanzhou's face in the driver's seat. In just a short month, he had lost a lot of weight, had a scruffy beard, and looked terrifying, with a look of deep hatred in his eyes. He slammed the accelerator and charged towards me. "Brother," I instinctively screamed. At such a close distance, Lu Huanzhou's expression suddenly changed in an instant. He looked at me with the cold yet gentle gaze I had seen countless times before when I was 18. He opened his mouth, but said silently, "Inin, you did well." The next second, the assistant suddenly hit the brakes. A sharp sound of tires scraping the road came from the window. Then there was a loud bang. I realized it, and stumbled out of the car. The black sedan had crashed into the flower bed by the roadside, and the front of the car was completely deformed. A bent metal railing pierced the front window of the car and stuck straight into his chest. 27. When spring came, Shiyu proposed to me. There was no grand scene, just in the top floor of the Lusher building, in my office. He closed the file and walked to me, slightly lowering his head. I thought he was going to ask for a kiss, and subconsciously tilted my head up. The next second, he knelt down in front of me, because the ring was personally designed and polished by me. It took some time to make, otherwise it could have been done last winter. He smiled, looking at me with a tender gaze. After all, it's something I've been thinking about every day since I was 17. Yonko, marry me, okay. His eyes were sparkling, like sunlight reflecting on a clear lake. I curved my lips slightly, extending my hand, okay. The next month, 10 Dreams, 9 Piece was released. It grossed 3.7 billion yuan in a month. The film was sent to participate in an exhibition and won several prestigious domestic and international awards. The day I picked up the Best Actress trophy, I sincerely thanked Shiyu and my brother on stage. It's my older brother, not that neurotic, the Buddhist insider of J City's elite circle. After the award ceremony, a reporter came over for an interview. Mr. Liu, may I ask? Is your brother the comatose vegetable man in the hospital? Liu Huanzhou. Of course, it is said that he and Lin Bailu were involved in an economic crime case. Lin Bailu has been sentenced to 7 years in prison, and once he wakes up, he will also face legal punishment. I remained silent for a moment and said calmly, punishing him by law is to ensure the fairness of the law. I thank him because he, as my older brother, once again protected me. This doesn't conflict. The interview ended, and I, holding the hem of my evening dress, got into the new Rolls-Royce that Shiyu bought. I'm so cold, Shiyu, hold me. He wrapped me in his long coat like a cocoon, holding my cold hands. Okay. A scorching kiss landed on my skin that wasn't covered by the evening dress, exchanging temperature and igniting a series of flames. The space inside the car wasn't small, but it gradually became extremely crowded between our movements. In the end, I begged for mercy with a trembling voice. So hot, brother. Shiyu's hot breath was against my ear, getting more and more scorching. Brother is also so hot. Come on, Enin, help me cool down. I had been making a lot of noise in the car, and after getting home, I kept pestering Shiyu all night. He noticed I was in a bad mood and indulged me no matter what. In the end, I had no strength left. My fingers were weak as I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Suddenly, I said, do you think my brother will wake up again? Or, maybe the one who wakes up is not him, but that monk. Shiyu sighed and pulled me close, hugging me and kissing me repeatedly. Don't think too much. If it's still that idiot, then he deserves to be in prison. If it's Liu Huanzhou, he wouldn't blame you. Even be grateful to yourself, because you saved yourself. Enin, 28. The next day, I went to the hospital with Shiyu to visit Liu Huanzhou. He was lying there with tubes and a ventilator for half a year already. I was holding my trophy and the recent contract signed with Liu's company. I chatted and chattered to him for a long time. In the end, I showed him the ring on my finger. Brother, I'm about to get married to Shiyu, and the wedding date is probably set for March next year. I really hope that you can come to the wedding then. Liu Huanzhou was lying in the hospital bed with his eyes closed, saying nothing. I stood up and said, sure you, let's go. We walked side by side to the door, about to open it. Suddenly, a familiar voice came from behind, weak, extremely hoarse. Enin. I turned around quickly. Cherry blossom petals were swirling outside the window, and one of them danced with the flowing sheer curtain and drifted into the room. Liu Huanzhou was lying in the hospital bed, looking at me with such softness and approval. You saved yourself, Enin. You're really remarkable. End of text. In his 3rd year in prison, Liu Huanzhou received a second reduced sentence, extra chapter. He would be released in half a year. That morning, Liu Shuyin brought Shiyu to visit him. Through the thick glass window, her eyes were a bit red, but she smiled and asked him, today is my birthday, do you still remember? Liu Huanzhou nodded, after thinking for a moment. He said to Shiyu beside him, Enin doesn't like cake, take her to eat Cantonese cuisine. Shiyu said with a bad mood, I have been married to Enin for 3 years, I know that better than you do. Liu Huanzhou tugged at the corner of his lips, revealing a smile. Enin has been my sister for 26 years. Shiyu's gaze fell on his thin face, the usual sarcastic words stuck in his throat, and he couldn't say anything. Finally, he pressed his dry eyes and spoke casually, in any case, stay good in there, we'll come to pick you up in 6 months. Liu Huanzhou said okay, then watched him walking out with Liu Shuin's hand. After 3 years of marriage, their relationship became better every day. Liu Huanzhou was relieved that during the time he was controlled by that unfamiliar system, at least, Enin had a Shiryu by her side, no matter past lives. It's like this, yes, he lied. In Liu Huanzhou's current memory, Enin has been his sister for more than 26 years. The moment the bent iron railing pierced his chest, he remembered everything from his past life. The year she was born, Lu Huanzhou was 3 years old. Before he could fully understand the meaning of the word sister, he saw a red, wrinkled baby. She had her eyes tightly closed, and her head's soft hair was still damp. His mother was lying in bed, looking weak, and asked him, "Does Xiao Zhou like his sister?" Lu Huanzhou gave an honest answer. "My younger sister, she's a bit ugly." Later, as they grew up, this incident was always brought up to tease Lu Xuyin. "Your brother's first impression of you was that you were ugly." She didn't get angry, but just raised her chin. "That's because I was born too late. Otherwise, if he saw me when he was born, he would also think he was ugly." That's what she said, but the next day, she still used the excuse, "You used to call me ugly." That's really unfair. To take Lu Huanzhou's monthly allowance, Lu Huanzhou loved his younger sister very much. He knew she was naive, spoiled, a bit simple, and only interested in things she liked. He never thought this was a big deal. After all, not everyone in this world can be naturally talented and decisive. As long as he is alive, Lu Jia's property will always be half hers. No one will be able to bully her. But Lu Huanzhou found himself wrong. 3 days before his 18th birthday, one night, a strange mechanical voice unexpectedly rang in his mind. That voice told him that the sister he had cherished and spoiled for 15 years, Lu Xuyin, was a bad person. He will meet a classmate who once was bullied and isolated by his sister, and fall in love with her at first sight. Then, let Lu Xuyin pay the price she deserves. Lu Huanzhou found it absurd and ridiculous. In this family, his father is rigid and traditional, and his mother is silent and reserved. Lu Huanzhou understood his younger sister more than anyone else. He even remembered that in her 14th year, she had fought with several delinquents and ended up with bruises all over her face to help a poor student who was being extorted. How could she bully her classmates? That voice had been repeating in his mind for 3 years, and Lu Huanzhou didn't believe a single word of it. Then, on his birthday, he opened his eyes, still thinking about last night when Lu Xuyin had secretly knocked on his door, saying she had prepared a special gift for him. Thinking about his most beloved younger sister, Lu Huanzhou instinctively wanted to smile gently, but his lips didn't even move. Then he realized that he had lost control of his body. On his 18th birthday, an unfamiliar consciousness, created by that so-called system, took over his body. His soul and thoughts did not dissipate, but he was trapped within his body. He watched helplessly as he went to Nangui Temple. When he returned, he inexplicably had a string of prayer beads around his wrist. That consciousness introduced itself as the Buddhist insider of J City's elite circle, and when facing Lu Xuyin, it looked cold to the extreme. He said, "Stay away from me." Lu Xuyin held the gift box, standing in confusion at the spot. For the next 7 years, she never once felt the intimacy Lu Huanzhou had shown before he was 18. Lu Huanzhou watched helplessly as he became unrecognizable and unfeeling, watching Shiryu and himself break up, watching Lu Xuyin get into the film academy, enter the entertainment industry, and almost become strangers to him. Then, in his 25th year, the so-called original female lead, Lin Bailu, appeared. She was wearing a long, plain-colored cheongsam, like a tender new willow branch, standing before him, stubbornly looking up. "Mr. Lu, even if you can cover the sky with one hand, you can't really disregard fairness and justice." For Lu Huanzhou, such methods could even be considered clumsy. Yet the unfamiliar consciousness that had taken over his body actually seemed to have developed some interest in Lin Bailu because of these words. He watched them get closer and closer. He watched Lin Bailu go to the Lu family, pointing at Lu Xuyin and accusing her of bullying herself. He watched Lu Xuyin scream and cry as her hair was shaved off, and she was stripped of all resources and opportunities in almost brutal ways, watching her being drugged in the drink, and taken away in front of him. Just like the 7 years of disintegration before, he could only watch, unable to do anything. At the moment their hazy and desperate eyes met, that consciousness coldly spoke, "You were born a bad seed, this is what you deserve." Lu Huanzhou felt a pain that penetrated his bones, rising from the depths of his heart bit by bit. On the day he learned of Yin's death, he almost went mad, questioning the system. Why? The system said, "This is the plot readers like to see. If you don't follow the character setup, I can only have someone replace you." It was too absurd. This is his life. In his life, so-called love has never been significant. Nothing is more important to him than Onan, that is his younger sister, his sister who he has watched grow from birth. Perhaps it was his excessive anger that influenced someone higher up. The person asked him, "Do you want to do it all over again?" But not you, your sister, as a price, no matter what the final outcome is. You will be the one punished. If that unfamiliar consciousness wins again, his soul will completely vanish from this world. If Onan wins, his soul will return to his body, but he will still have to pay the price for his previous actions. That voice asked him, how about it? Want to take a gamble? Why not? Lu Huanzhou showed no expression. No matter what, it's better than this. How could he allow Yining to die with such a reputation that everyone despised? While the two main culprits remained unscathed, even being loved by thousands of people, fortunately, he won the bet. The day Lu Huanzhou was released from prison, sure you came to pick him up in a car, a group of reporters were blocking the entrance. Waiting to interview him, the former top executive of Lu's company, now fallen from grace. There's something going on at the company. Yining went to handle it. Getting into the car, Shiyu said, we'll go home directly, she'll be back soon. Lu Huanzhou softly replied, okay. The silent air was flowing in the car. After driving for a while, Shiyu suddenly asked, do you know that I will help her? Lu Huanzhou was stunned, and didn't deny it. Yes, you're so smart, if it really exists. How could you not guess? Shiyu gave a self-mocking smile. In my past life, I wasn't very smart. I should have acted earlier, otherwise, I wouldn't have sacrificed myself and not even saved one. Lu Huanzhou remained silent. A familiar voice, filled with tears, rang out. I didn't let Yining start over again, but perhaps I was hoping she could turn to Shiyu for help. I should apologize to you, Lu Huanzhou said in a low voice. When you said you liked Yining, I always thought it was too young. Some words just for fun, not to be taken seriously. Unexpectedly, Shiyu had loved her for many years without anyone in the world knowing. No need to apologize, Shiyu said. I should also thank you, otherwise, I wouldn't have this day with Yining. Neither of them said another word. The car drove forward, passing by streetlights, through clusters of flowers, stopped in front of a villa surrounded by rose walls. Shiyu unfastened his seatbelt. Turning around with a bit of pride, Yining has now moved behind the scenes and is known in the industry as a top-tier investor. She won't easily act unless she's very interested in a script. Lu Huanzhou looked into his eyes and said, you've taken good care of her. Shiyu nodded. So you also need to get better, or she won't be at ease. They got out of the car. From a distance, Lu Shuing was standing at the door, her eyes sparkling with tears. Lu Huanzhou thought back to the day he woke up in the hospital. The police soon found out the news and came to the hospital to take him to prison. Lu Shuing still acted like a child, crying and throwing herself into his arms, asking him, bro, are you angry with me? Lu Huanzhou gently smiled, of course not. In his heart, a brother who failed to protect his sister should pay such a price. Story 2, my boyfriend committed suicide. Before he died, he left me a suicide note. You son of a bitch. Without me, you'll definitely starve to death. I've left all my fucking money to you, don't squander it recklessly. So I inherited the 1 billion yuan left by my boyfriend. At his funeral, I almost burst out laughing while crying. And then I was reborn. I was reborn back to his high school days. Lu Sun that year was pale, fragile, and as thin as a stick. He was surrounded by several hooligans on the ground and was being punched and kicked, before my brain could react. I had already rushed over and shielded him behind me. Damn it, who gave you the right to beat my future money-making god? 1. On my 28th birthday, Lu Sun committed suicide by jumping into the sea. After receiving the news, my eyes went dark, and my temples throbbed. I smiled and cursed him to my friend. This son of a bitch really chose the right time to die. He really knew how to pick the time. I couldn't celebrate my birthday anymore. I pushed aside all my important and unimportant work in the near future and flew overnight to the city where Lu Sun had left. I only managed to see a suicide note he left behind. The letter said, you bastard, you liar. By the time you read the suicide note, I'm already dead. Without me, you'll surely starve to death too. So I've left all my fucking money to you. Spend it sparingly. Don't use it to hire male models. Not even gigolos, otherwise I won't let you off even if I become a ghost. I gritted my teeth as I finished reading the suicide note and put the letter away. This idiot was still calling me a son of a bitch even when he was about to die. 2. Lu Sun was an orphan without parents and had no relatives to turn to. I had to handle his funeral. There were not many people who came to pay their condolences. They were all dressed in black and said to me, Mr. Please accept my condolences. I didn't actually feel very sad. Just after finishing the funeral at noon, that night I went to the Bema Club and used Lu Sun's money to hire 3 gigolos in a row. The boys were all extremely good-looking. They would call me Gidge in a sticky voice and come up close with wine glasses in their hands, asking for kisses. But even though the atmosphere had been built up to this point, I suddenly realized that I might not be interested in anyone other than Lu Sun. This one's eye shape wasn't as delicate as Lu Sun's. And that one's skin wasn't white enough, and there was one whose eyebrows and eyes were too docile, making him seem too boring. Anyway, no matter how I looked at them, none of them were as good-looking as Lu Sun. I tilted my head back and took a sip of the wine that one of the boys had handed me. I looked at them one by one. Finally, I curled my lips into a smile and tried to speak softly, saying, "You guys, right now, get the hell out of here." The few boys in front of me were stunned for a moment, their eyes all darkened, and they turned around dejectedly and left. One of them muttered unhappily in a low voice, "What's this? It's so hard to meet someone who's good-looking and generous. Why chase us away halfway? Rich people are all so moody." Another one pushed him and said, "Stop talking. Don't you know this person? That's you. Have you seen the news? The CEO named Lou who committed suicide a few days ago, that's his partner. He must be really annoyed right now. Shut up and be careful not to provoke him." I was indeed quite annoyed. On the fourth day after Lu Sun's death, I kind of missed him. 3. I don't remember how much wine I drank alone that night. Anyway, when I opened my eyes again, I was wearing a school uniform and standing on the curb. The wristwatch on my left wrist had a year scale, showing that this year was 2013, 10 years ago. There were sounds of scolding coming from the alley at the corner at the end of the road. From the voices, it seemed to be several young people, repeating a few swear words over and over again: orphan, illegitimate child, a wild thing without parents. These words were accompanied by the sound of fists and kicks landing from time to time. The more I listened, the tighter my brows furrowed. I followed the sound and walked into the alley. As soon as I looked up, I saw Lu Sun. He was wearing the same summer school uniform as me. He was held down firmly on the ground by several hooligans with colorful hair. The exposed skin was covered in bruises, and in many places, there was still blood seeping out. His face was pale and sickly, almost like that of a dead person. My heart tightened. This scene was simply too eye-catching. The Lu Sun I was familiar with had never been in such an embarrassing state. This arrogant bastard who always put on airs was actually so pathetic when he was young. Just letting others beat him up like this, damn it, couldn't he fight back? I casually picked up a beer bottle at my feet and knocked off the lower half of it against the wall with a bang. The few hooligans immediately stopped hitting people and turned to look in my direction. "Damn it, you scared the shit out of me. Are you crazy? What are you doing? What am I doing?" I smiled and walked forward slowly with the remaining half of the bottle in my hand. I walked through the group of hooligans and stood in front of Lu Sun. "Of course, I'm here to fight. I'm a national Sanda champion. When I was 15, I could fight 10 people at once. Lu Sun was the one who would leave me 1 billion yuan after his death. How could I let these bastards beat up my future money-making god right in front of me? That's ridiculous." 10 minutes later, those hooligans who had been acting so arrogant were kneeling in front of me, crying bitterly. I smiled, raised my hand, and slapped the red-haired leader again. "You really have some nerve. You even dared to hit my boyfriend, huh? And you?" I kept smiling and slapped the purple-haired one on the face with my backhand. "Who were you calling an illegitimate child just now? If you're sick, go see a vet. There's more water in your head than in the Jingwei bird's attempt to fill the sea." I gave them a good beating one by one, not showing any mercy. I guess the people in front of me had already been cursing my family in their hearts, but on the surface, they were still cowering under my might. Very good. I flexed my sore wrist, ready to say one last harsh word to end it, but when I turned around, I saw Lu Sun leaning against the wall and standing up awkwardly. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with the back of his hand. Then he picked up his school bag and limped towards the outside of the alley. I didn't care about lessen the hooligans anymore. I hurriedly called out to him, "Where are you going?" Lu Sun stopped for a moment, like a wind-up robot that suddenly froze, but just a second later, he continued walking forward. He completely ignored my question and didn't even look back at me. I almost forgot. At this time, Lu Sun didn't know me yet. "Fuck," I cursed in a low voice, kicked the green-haired one kneeling in front of me, and raised my voice to shout at Lu Sun, "Stop. Try taking one more step forward. Do you believe that I'll break one of your arms if you take a step?" I don't know if my 2 threats, which were more bluff than substance, had an effect. Anyway, Lu Sun stopped. 5. When Lu Sun was still alive, I didn't often call him by his name. I usually called him Hey or just called him a psycho. when we were having sex, I would call him a son of a bitch. Now, suddenly encountering a situation where I needed to call him properly, I was a bit unaccustomed. I cleared my throat, took 2 steps forward, and reached out to grab him. Lu Sun. Before I could say anything, Lu Sun had already shaken off my hand with a strong reaction. I rubbed a bit of the blood on Lu Sun's arm with my fingertips. I looked at the wound on his body that was gushing blood, and asked again, "Where are you going now? Don't you need to treat the wound?" Lu Sun didn't answer my question. He raised his eyes and looked at me. Those beautiful fox-like eyes were completely different from the charming and calm look I remembered. Instead, they were filled with alienation and vigilance. I sighed. "Lu Sun, don't look at me like that." This time, I pronounced the 2 words Lu Sun very clearly. He was stunned for a moment, and a flash of surprise passed through his eyes. You know me." I nodded. "Of course I know you." 6. I took Lu Sun back to school nearby and went to the school infirmary. The school doctor was an old man. As soon as he saw Lu Sun, he adjusted his glasses and sighed. "It's you again. Why do you always get yourself all bruised and battered every few days? No matter how tough your body is, it can't stand being treated like this every day. You know that fighting is not good, right?" He didn't fight. He was just being beaten unilaterally. I smiled, put my hands on Lu Sun's shoulders, and pressed him to sit down. I also casually ruffled his hair. "Did you hear that? Don't fight in the future. Hurry up and roll up your pant legs so the doctor can take a look. You were limping on the way here. Let's check where your leg is injured." Lu Sun obediently lowered his head, but he didn't move his hands for a long time. My patience ran out. I frowned and clicked my tongue softly. "Are you getting shy? What are you being embarrassed about in front of me? After living together for so many years, there's nowhere on his body that I haven't seen." I stood and looked down at Lu Sun. I resisted the urge to pinch his face hard and squatted directly in front of Lu Sun. I slowly rolled up his pant legs. My fingertips moved up along the thin fabric of his school uniform pants. First, I gently touched his ankle, and then his calf. Above the calf, there was a large area of shocking scars. They were a mix of red and purple, and in the deeper wounds, the flesh was even turned out. If it were someone else, they might have a hard time even standing up now. I can't believe he had walked such a long way behind me without saying a word just now. The school doctor's face also became serious. After examining Lu Sun's wound, he picked up the tools and carefully started cleaning the wound. As soon as the cotton swab touched the skin around the wound, Lu Sun's face turned even paler. He bit his lower lip tightly and instinctively shrank back a bit. After a pause, he spoke softly, saying the first sentence since he walked into the school infirmary. "It hurts." The school doctor frowned so tightly that he could crush a fly. He looked at Lu Sun unhappily. "Endure the pain. What are you shrinking back for? Are you being so delicate for a boy?" I stood up, smiled, and raised my hand to turn Lu Sun's head. I pressed his head firmly into my arms. "He's always been this delicate." I looked down at Lu Sun and said, "Bury your head in my arms. Don't look down. If you don't see it, it won't hurt." Lu Sun struggled a bit. This earned him an angry roar from the school doctor. "What are you moving for again?" So Lu Sun stopped moving. I naturally hugged Lu Sun tightly and also rubbed his head. 7. After treating the wound, Lu Sun fell asleep in the school infirmary. I stayed by his bedside and watched over him for the whole afternoon. When it was getting dark, I noticed that the person lying next to me seemed to move slightly. I put down the book in my hand and waved my hand in front of his eyes. "Lu Sun, are you awake? Is there anywhere else you—" Before I could finish my sentence, Lu Sun slightly turned his head and stared straight at me. His eyes were very beautiful, and I swallowed the second half of what I was going to say. The air was silent for a moment. He paused and then said slowly, "How do you know my name? How do you know me?" My voice stopped. I briefly thought about it, was silent for a moment, and then calmly replied to him, "Of course I know you. I'm your boyfriend." "Yeah." I thought for a few seconds and then added rigorously, "But of course not now. It's in the future." He pursed his lips. Obviously, he didn't believe me. "What are you talking nonsense about?" I smiled and raised my hand to pinch his face. "I'm not talking nonsense. I really am your boyfriend." "A future boyfriend is also a boyfriend." Lu Sun slapped my hand away and looked at me in silence. Obviously, he still didn't believe me. Damn it, why was this kid so wary when he was young? What's there for you not to believe? I rubbed the back of my hand, raised my eyebrows, and sneered. I moved a little closer to him and said in a low voice, "You have a crescent-shaped red birthmark on the inside of your thigh, which is congenital. You have several scars on your back. Which were burned by cigarette butts when you were in the orphanage when you were a child, right? Also, you're afraid of arthropods with a lot of legs because someone threw a bunch of spiders on your bed when you were 8. You don't like it when it's dark because you were locked in a small dark room alone for many days when you first arrived at the orphanage. Also, after saying so much, Lucen didn't refute me. Obviously, what I just said was all correct. He was used to not showing his emotions, but he must be really shocked in his heart that I know so many things about him. I belatedly felt a pang of bitterness. The life he lived before really had nothing to do with the word good. I abruptly ended this topic and forced myself to pull a smile at Lucen. Forget it, let's not talk about these things. His head felt nice and fluffy, so I touched it again and continued. You just need to know that I'm indeed your future partner. I like you very much and am willing to do anything for you, but you ran away with 1 billion yuan of my money and had a car accident on the way. You died without a trace, so this time I came back. I curved my eyes and enunciated each word clearly. I'm here to find you and collect the debt. Collect the debt. Lucen raised his eyes, his gaze falling on me. His voice was still steady. You mean, I have to pay you back that 1 billion yuan? 1 billion yuan. It must have scared him to death. No, I don't want the money. I'm not short of money. I smiled and looked directly into his dark and beautiful eyes. Besides the money, you also deceived my feelings. What you owe me is a debt of love. You won't have paid off the debt until you fall in love with me. 8. According to the trajectory of the previous life, although Lucen and I were in the same school for a while during high school. I went abroad at the beginning of our senior year of high school, until I returned to China at the age of 22. I had no contact with Lucen at all. After Lucen passed away, I found a large number of antidepressant drugs from the combination safe he left in our room. It was a highly confidential combination safe. I thought Lucen used it to store valuable items, so I never asked much about it. But I never expected that he used it to hide his medicine. In fact, during the 6 years we were together, I of course knew that Lucen was ill, but he always behaved very normally. Besides occasional sleep disorders and mental sluggishness, there were no other symptoms. There were never any inexplicable scars on his body. His emotions were always stable, and he wouldn't even let me see him taking medicine when I accompanied him to the hospital for a follow-up visit. The doctor said that his condition was well controlled and there were obvious signs of improvement. The condition was good and there was obvious improvement, but I still received the news of his death. Lucen loved me, perhaps even more than I loved him. I never doubted this. If he didn't find it painful to live even one more day, why would he commit suicide by jumping into the sea on my birthday? I visited Lucen's attending doctor before the funeral. At that time, the doctor told me, from my previous conversations with Mr. Liu, you are an extremely important person to him, you are his connection to this world, but he has come to this point, and this connection is no longer enough to support him to live on, so even thinking of you, he didn't want to stay. At that moment, I was thinking whether I appeared too late. It would be great if I could have met him earlier. If I could have met him earlier, I would definitely have treated Lucen very well. He was an orphan without parents, but it didn't matter. I would become his family and love him. It was too late. The alarm clock rang on time at 6 o'clock sharp. I sat up along the bedside with cold sweat all over my body, took a breath, and then tremblingly reached out to grope for the mobile phone placed on the bedside table. Fortunately, this year was 2013. 9. I quickly got ready and was driven to school by the family driver. The first thing I did when I arrived at school was to apply for a class transfer. My family had donated 2 buildings to the school, so transferring to another class was just a piece of cake. During the second class in the morning that day, I just picked up 2 books and went to report to the class where Lucen was. Lucen was sitting in the last row of the classroom, by the window. When he saw me, a trace of surprise clearly flashed in his dark and beautiful eyes. I stood on the podium and smiled at him with my eyes curved. Lucen's hand holding the pen paused for a moment, and then he quickly lowered his head and continued to do the problems, no longer looking at me. The grade director looked around the whole class and then said to me, "Student you can sit in the seat in the 4th row, the view is good, and it's not too close to the blackboard." There were obviously people in the seats of the 4th row. The grade director was going to randomly select an unlucky classmate to make room for me, the person with connections. I smiled and shook my head. No need. Then I nodded in the direction of Lucen. "Isn't there still an empty seat next to that classmate in the last row? I can just sit there." The director nodded and smiled, and took a step forward to clean up the seat for me. I walked slowly behind him with my books in my arms. As soon as I sat down, I heard someone snort in front of me. I said, "Young master, why did you suddenly decide to sit there? Guess why that seat has been empty all the time, everyone thinks it's unlucky there." I looked up, and the person who spoke looked quite familiar. He was one of the hooligans I had taught a lesson to in the alley yesterday. It turned out that he was also Lucian's classmate. The director wasn't blind either. He immediately gave him a sharp look and sternly reprimanded. "What nonsense are you talking? Continue with your self-study. Do you still have any manners as a student?" The man seemed very unconvinced and retorted to the director, "What did I say wrong? Lucian is a jinx. No one in the school wants to stay with him. He is born with bad luck. He killed his own parents, so he became an orphan. I heard that his biological mother was a prostitute in the red light district before she died. She was more seductive than a vixen, otherwise. How could she have given birth to Lucian so good-looking? His adoptive parents don't like him either, right? They either beat or scold him every day. It's all retribution." The words became more and more unpleasant. The director's dignity was completely lost, and he was furious. He turned around and smiled apologetically at me, then grabbed the man by the collar and took him outside the classroom. I didn't say anything and turned my head to look at Lucian's reaction. He didn't react much. From beginning to end, he didn't even lift his eyelids. He calmly drew an auxiliary line on the geometric figure of the math problem. It was different. It was too different. The Lucian I knew would dare to turn over the table and fight with anyone who dared to show him a bad face, but now, being ridiculed like this, he didn't even reply a single word. If I had seen this situation when I first met him in the previous life, I would have scoffed disdainfully and mocked him for being so useless, but now, I just gently squeezed his wrist and said softly, "Are you tired? You can write later, it's the break time." Lucian stopped writing, glanced at me, and moved further away from me. "Be quiet and don't disturb me. If you're sleepy, go to sleep by yourself." I frowned. "Why are you so cold?" Then I obediently didn't disturb him anymore and fell asleep on the desk by myself. Lucian studied seriously for the whole morning. I slept for 3 consecutive classes with my head resting on my arm, in fact, even when I was asleep. My dreams were all about Lucian. Sometimes it was him coming back from a business trip, pressing me against the wall and kissing me while wearing a suit, and insisting on pulling my hand to loosen his tie for him. Sometimes it was me watching him jump into the sea with my own eyes and finding a suicide note with scribbled handwriting by the seaside. A dream was more tiring than going to work. When I struggled to wake up, as soon as I opened my eyes, I saw Lucian again. His backhand was resting on my forehead, and it seemed that he was testing my temperature. I opened my mouth, and my voice was a little hoarse from just waking up. "What are you doing?" "Checking if you have a fever," he said and withdrew his hand. After a few seconds of silence, he asked me again, "Are you cold? You kept shivering when you were asleep." I didn't answer him. I closed my eyes, supported myself with the table, and sat up straight. Only then did I see that I was still wearing Lucian's school uniform jacket. The window that was originally open at the back of the classroom had also been closed by someone. "Lucian," I said, "you care about me quite a bit." He turned his head away. No, he was being duplicitous. He liked me in the previous life, and he would like me in this life as well. I smiled and didn't tease him anymore. For the first time, I took out a set of test papers and prepared to start doing the problems. The girl sitting in front of me suddenly turned around and handed me a folded piece of white paper. "You're finally awake. This is for you." I looked up and asked her, "What is this, a love letter?" I understood. It was 2013 now, and it was quite popular to confess with love letters in school. When Lucian heard those 2 words, he gave me a meaningful look, said nothing, and then retracted his gaze. "I don't want it." I slowly pushed the letter paper back and said, "I already have someone I like." "Okay." The girl held a lollipop in her mouth and indifferently put away the love letter. "Just someone you like. That means you're not together yet." Although I failed, out of the goodness of my heart, I wish you success soon. I looked at Lucian, who was lowering his head and doing the problems, and said to her, "Thank you." 10. I didn't attend the evening self-study. As soon as the classes in the afternoon were over, I left. I made a phone call and had those little hooligans from yesterday taught a lesson again, especially focusing on the one with a mean mouth in the morning. Just as I was about to go back to find Lucian after dealing with them, I turned around and saw him coming out of the school. He was wearing a mask and the hood of his sweatshirt, and he was walking quickly with his head down. Lucian, who loved studying so much, Wasn't attending the evening self-study either. I stared at his back suspiciously for a few seconds, then got into my family's driver's car. Then I pointed at Lu Sun and told the driver, "Follow him." The driver nodded and started the car. Finally, the car stopped at the entrance of the Bema Club. Of course, I wouldn't suspect that Lu Sun had any bad habits because of this. Judging from his current financial situation, he was most likely here to make money. In his previous life, Lu Sun started from scratch. When he died, he already had a fortune of 1 billion yuan that he could leave to me. He was obviously self-taught and had his own unique way in making money. I waved my hand, asked the driver to leave first, and then followed Lu Sun into the club. In 2013, the Bema Club didn't follow the quiet and elegant route like it did 10 years later. Inside, there were feasting lights, shadows of people moving around, and the music was so noisy that it made my head ache. I walked a few steps and lost sight of Lu Sun. But I unexpectedly met someone here that I never thought I would see, my biological father, Suizhou. He was already in his 40s, but it was still hard to see the marks of time on his face. He was wearing a black coat, with a tall and straight figure. He was holding a glass of wine in his hand and had a young and handsome man in his arms. "I don't know what," someone said with a laugh, and he laughed along. Then he took a sip of wine and fed it to the man in his arms with his mouth. Cheers and teasing sounds rang out. Suizhou slightly restrained his smile, raised his eyes and looked around, and said, "Okay, stop making trouble, don't scare him." My stomach turned upside down. I raised my hand to cover my chest, and my vision started to blur. Since I could remember, Suizhou had rarely gone home. He always said he was very busy. It turned out that he was actually busy with these things. I suddenly thought of my mother, who was living in the nursing home and had always been crazy. Why did she go crazy? I subconsciously took 2 steps back, but accidentally knocked over the wine glass on the tray held by the waiter behind me. The glass shattered into pieces, the wine splashed everywhere, and the crowd became agitated. My brain was buzzing, and I couldn't hear anything. I leaned against the wall, bent over as if I had lost my strength, and slowly squatted down. Someone raised their hand to support my shoulder and then firmly grasped my wrist. I looked up in a daze and saw Lu Sun kneeling in front of me. He brushed my forehead hair aside, and his tone was rarely filled with a bit of urgency. "You, what's wrong?" I grabbed Lu Sun's hand and glanced in the direction of Suizhou. Fortunately, there were a lot of people here, and it was noisy and chaotic. Suizhou didn't notice the commotion here. I bit my lower lip and forced myself to pull a smile at Lu Sun. "It's okay, I was worried about you and followed you here." I suddenly felt a little dizzy. "Can you take me out?" Lu Sun probably also sensed that something was wrong, but he didn't ask further. He just nodded, took hold of my sleeve, and pulled me out. When we got out of the gate, he stopped and turned back to look at me. Suddenly, he said, "You. I didn't do anything I shouldn't have done here." I was still thinking about the scene just now, and I didn't react for a moment to what Lu Sun was saying. Lu Sun continued, "The people who come to consume in this club are either rich or noble, and there are even many celebrities. So the MBs here also want to learn some new and presentable knowledge to please the customers. I occasionally come here to give them lessons and earn some money." Now I understood what he was talking about. He was explaining to me why he was in such a place after school. I looked at Lu Sun's face, which was even more handsome and charming under the beautiful lights. After hesitating for a moment, I finally reached out and gently hugged him. Lu Sun's body stiffened slightly, but at least he didn't push me away. So I pushed my luck and rested my chin on his shoulder. I said, "I know, Lu Sun, you've worked hard." 11. The He family had a single-family villa in the west of the city. After my mother moved into the nursing home, I had been living there alone. I didn't dare to turn on the light when I returned to my room. Images of Suizhou flashed through my mind like a movie. I once asked Suizhou why he never visited my mother. At that time, he said, "There's nothing to see. She just couldn't think things through and forced herself into a dead end." I stayed up until the second half of the night with my eyes open. I got up and rummaged through the cabinets to find the sleeping pills. I took several pills in a row and barely fell asleep. In my dream, I saw Lu Sun from the previous life again. At that time, although we were already together, in fact, we didn't get to be together very often. When he was busy, he worked like crazy. He had been running around outside for a long time, and it was common for him to sleep only 4 hours in 3 days. Work was more important than anything else in his eyes. There was only one exception. It was when I was sick. He left his work behind and rushed back overnight to take care of me. It seemed to be a busy working day for both of us. Lucien was on a business trip in another place. I felt a little headache when I got up in the morning, but I didn't take it seriously. As a result, I had a high fever before evening. I tried my best to deal with my work. My friend couldn't stand it and told Lucien. Lucien immediately called me back. His tone was normal, and he just told me to pay more attention to rest. I replied okay and hung up the phone. No one expected that before I could finish the newly added work that night, I saw Lucien in the company. He had bought a plane ticket and rushed back in a hurry while he was in the middle of his work. When he came, he was travel-worn, and the tired look on his face was hard to hide. There were dark circles under his eyes. When he saw me, he didn't say anything and just dragged me to the hospital. In the middle of the night, I woke up from the fever. I sat up along the bedside of the hospital bed in a daze. When I saw Lucien sleeping with his eyes closed at the head of my bed, I covered him with a piece of clothing. My movement was very light, but Lucien had a light sleep. His eyelashes trembled slightly, and he opened his eyes immediately. In fact, I felt sorry for him for running back and forth, but at that time, I had a stubborn personality, so the words that came out of my mouth weren't very pleasant. I paused for a moment before looking at him and saying, "Are you crazy? Isn't it the same if you come back in a few days? Am I going to die?" Lucien smiled and raised his hand to touch my forehead. "You're the one who's crazy." After a while, he gently took my hand and repeatedly rubbed the palm of my hand with his fingertips. "I'm worried about you. The wicked live a long life." He said in a low voice, "You can't die. What would I do if you died?" At that time, I really didn't understand what he was worried about. I coughed a few times and pulled my hand out of his. "You're cursing me. It's just a fever. Do I look like I'm going to die?" Lucien stared at me for a while, and finally said nothing. He pressed me back down to lie down, tucked the corner of the quilt for me, and turned around and walked out of the ward. The next day, my fever had almost subsided. Lucien watched me finish taking the medicine, took out his phone, and started booking a plane ticket again. I asked him, "Where are you going?" Lucien didn't even look up. "Going back to work." I frowned and softened my tone. I touched the back of his hand with the hand that still had the retention needle inserted. "Don't go. You're so tired that you've lost all your color. If you keep working continuously for 2 more days, you'll end up in the hospital bed and be sicker than me." Lucien didn't listen to a word of it. He picked up his coat and prepared to leave. "How can I not go to work? Don't worry about me. Just take care of yourself. I'm fine." At that time, even Lucien's subordinates said that Manager Lou was risking his life for money. Thinking about it now, it was probably because he lacked a sense of security too much and had too few things he could hold on to. Just as the doctor said, he was gradually losing his connection with the world, and money was the most direct and realistic thing he could hold on to. Unfortunately, later, this connection composed of money was also broken. Lucien, who liked money so much, didn't take anything with him when he was 28 years old. He just jumped into the sea as soon as he decided to. All the money and assets in his name remained untouched and were all left to me. He abandoned everything he cared about, including me. 12. Obviously, I had taken an excessive amount of sleeping pills, but I was still haunted by nightmares all night. When I woke up the next day, it was almost afternoon. Fortunately, today was the weekend. I went out and wandered around near Lucien's house. At the same time, I was thinking about what excuse I could come up with to find him today. Suddenly, a little stray cat jumped out from the low bushes beside me. It looked dirty all over and was not much bigger than my palm. It was quite friendly. I didn't have any food on me, but it still slowly approached and rubbed its head against me from time to time. I touched the kitten's head. I was about to leave when the doctor's words suddenly flashed through my mind. Establish his connection with the world, raising a small animal that depends on him for everything from birth to death. Eating, drinking, and defecating. Isn't that a connection? I immediately asked someone to bring cat food and fed the kitten some. I also waited for that little stray cat for several days in a row. Every day after I met it, I led it to the path that Lucien must take on his way home and fed it something. As time passed, the kitten became familiar with me. Lucien also began to notice it. One day after school, it rained. Lucien walked on the road with his hands in his pockets. I held an umbrella and hid in the crowd, secretly following him from behind. On the surface, Lucien acted like he didn't care about anyone. In fact, he left the umbrella for the kitten to shelter from the rain and went home in the rain himself. When he was in the rain, I happened to appear as if by coincidence, held the umbrella over his head, and raised my eyebrows and smiled. "Why don't you like to check the weather forecast when you go out?" Luckily, I met you, let's go together." Lucien pursed his lips and didn't refuse. He said to me, "Thank you." He was a little taller than me. After walking only 2 steps, he became the one holding the umbrella. I lowered my eyes slightly and could see that the hand holding the umbrella handle was fair, slender, and had distinct knuckles. The umbrella handle was tilted. He controlled the strength and always tilted the umbrella towards me a little. It was raining on the long street, and the tree-lined path was long. We didn't say a word along the way. 13. After another 2 days, it seemed that the kitten had completely regarded me as one of its own. Not only did it let me touch it, but it also let me hold it. The driver had already parked the car and was waiting by the roadside. I took the opportunity to stuff it into my arms, turned around, and got into the car, planning to take it to the pet hospital for sterilization. When we arrived at the hospital, the doctor and I played along and staged a scene in front of the cat. The beloved pet was forcefully taken away, and the owner was heartbroken, regretful, and powerless, in case the kitten would hold a grudge against me in the future. Then I watched helplessly as it entered the operating room waiting to be neutered. After sitting down, I sent a message to Lucien, saying that I had adopted the little stray cat that I always met on the road. Then I heard someone call my name in surprise beside me. You. I turned around and saw it was the girl who had given me a love letter in class before. "It's really you," she said with a smile in her eyes and eyebrows. "Is that little cat yours? I thought you would like a breed like a ragdoll. I didn't expect you to adopt a little stray cat. Did you pick it up?" I put away my phone and curled the corners of my lips. "Yes. I met it on the roadside." "You adopted it as soon as you met it? Do you like small animals very much?" "Yes," I nodded, glanced in the direction of the operating room, and added, "However, I didn't adopt it just because I like it. Is there another reason?" "Yes, there is," I said. "I also adopted it to make Lucien happy. Such a cute kitten, wouldn't it fascinate him?" The girl was stunned for a moment, and then she showed an expression of sudden realization, as if she suddenly understood something. 14. I took the kitten home. Although it was a little tabby cat, I named it Xiaobai. While playing with the cat in the bedroom, I casually took a photo of Xiaobai and sent it to Lucien. He might have been busy and didn't reply immediately. I stared blankly at the chat box. In the previous life, Lucien also mentioned that he wanted to raise a kitten, but later he said forget it. I asked him why he changed his mind. He said he might not be able to see the kitten to the end of its life. It wasn't until I received the news of his death later that I knew. Lucien probably had already decided to leave at that time. While I was staying up all night working on the plan, he was already calculating the inheritance he would leave me and considering whether to jump off a building or into the sea. After Xiaobai finished eating the cat treats, it also gently bit the tip of my finger. I was bitten and felt the pain. I came back to my senses, lowered my eyes, and saw the message Lucien replied on the phone screen. There were only 4 words, "It's very cute." 15. After taking careful care of it for more than half a month, Xiaobai had already become much fatter than before, but Lucien hadn't even seen it much. I couldn't use my charm of the cute cat trick. After a little thought, I decided to go directly to Lucien with the cat in my arms. I would say that I suddenly had something to do and couldn't keep Xiaobai anymore, if he didn't take it in. There was a good chance that it would die this winter. After all, it was still 2013, when I navigated to a place quite a distance away from Lucien's house. I completely lost my way and spun around like a headless fly. I asked the driver to pull the car over to the side of the road, got out of the car myself, and carried Xiaobai into the complex alleys of the residential area. The space here was cramped, with many tube-shaped buildings standing closely together. In the southwestern corner, there was a welfare institute, where Lucien was abandoned when he was a child. The cries of street vendors, the laughter, scolding, and chatter of people from all walks of life were mixed together. The smell of dead fish, rotten shrimp, and decaying fruits and vegetables filled the air, and even the ground was uneven. Xiaobai turned around in my arms and licked the palm of my hand. I sighed, stroked its head, and continued walking forward. In the previous life, in the impression of everyone, Lucien had a delicate and noble appearance, and he was always thoughtful, proper, and tactful in his dealings with people. When dealing with business matters, he was even able to handle things with ease in front of various experienced business veterans at a young age. Just from the surface, it was really hard for others to believe that he grew up in such a place. After turning and winding for a long way, I stopped in front of a tube-shaped building that was still extremely shabby among the many dilapidated tube-shaped buildings. I guessed that going through the door on the left on the second floor of this building was Lu Sun's home. As soon as I raised my foot and was about to go up, there came a sound of smashing pots, pans, and bowls from the iron door with poor sound insulation. Then a pair of middle-aged men and women started to scold each other sharply. "The factory is going to lay off workers. What can I do? Why are you yelling at me? That Director Wu is a bullying bastard. If you have the ability, go and reason with him." And him, I said back then not to adopt this little jinx, but you just didn't listen. You knew what his mother did back then. Now, great. We have to take this burden with us. Judging from the content of the quarrel, it was very likely that the source of these voices was Lu Sun's current adoptive parents. I stopped in my tracks. After a moment of hesitation, I took out my phone and sent a message to Lu Sun. "I want to see you and came to visit you. I'm downstairs at your house. I brought Xiaobai here too." After a few seconds, Lu Sun replied, "Okay, wait a moment." 16. I stood downstairs and waited for a few minutes. Lu Sun pushed the door open and came down. As soon as he saw me, he frowned slightly and said softly, "Why are you wearing so little? You'll be cold later." "Have you been waiting for a long time?" I shook my head. "No, I just arrived." Lu Sun touched Xiaobai, then looked back at the door that still couldn't block the scolding sound even though it was tightly closed, and asked me, "Then are you cold?" I held Xiaobai with one hand and used the other hand to lightly hold Lu Sun's wrist. "I'm fine, don't worry about me. I just wanted to come and see you and I'll leave in a while." The anticipation and joy I had when I came were long gone. I couldn't wait to take Lu Sun away from this place forever right now. It would be best to lock him up in my room and never let him see anyone else except me. I clenched my teeth tightly and tried my best not to let my emotions show even a little bit. I even forced myself to smile at Lu Sun. Then I pulled him to the side and found a step for us to sit on together. Lu Sun took Xiaobai over and put it in his arms, gently stroking its fur from time to time. Xiaobai raised its paw and gently scratched him. If I didn't know what was going to happen in the future, I probably would have just thought that the scene in front of me was a picture worth remembering. But Lu Sun was already 18 years old. In 2 or 3 months, his adoptive parents' freight car would collide with Hisuejo's car, resulting in a serious traffic accident. All 3 of them would die on the spot. Lu Sun had lacked love and care since he was a child. He was so grateful for even the smallest kindness from others that he would remember it for a lifetime. So even though his adoptive parents didn't treat him well, he had already regarded them as his own family. Lu Sun was only a teenager at that time. He had no friends and no lover. He heard the bad news alone at school and forced himself to handle their funerals alone. He was lonely and miserable again from then on, until he met me. The doctor said that his depression was also closely related to his past experiences. Hisuejo and Lu Sun's adoptive parents, it didn't matter if they died, but Lu Sun must not have anything else happen to him. I couldn't lose him again. Lu Sun probably sensed that I was in a bit of a bad mood. He held Xiaobai's paw and rubbed it against my face, asking me, "What's wrong with you? What are you thinking about?" I lowered my eyes, was silent for a few seconds, and then looked at Lu Sun. "If you had the chance, would you be willing to adopt Xiaobai?" He was stunned for a moment, lowered his eyes, and his gaze fell on Xiaobai, which was rolling around in his arms. The street lamp above was dim, and his long black eyelashes cast a shadow under his eyes. After a long time, he spoke. "I can't keep it." "Why not?" He smiled. If you have a pet, you have to take responsibility for it, right? I can't even settle down myself." I was taken aback. After a pause, I said softly, "Then, would you like to move in and live with me?" He curved his beautiful eyes, and his eyes showed a hint of surprise. "Are you kidding?" "No way." I took Xiaobai back, hooked its chin with my fingertips, and asked Lu Sun, "Why not? We can take care of Xiaobai together." Lu Sun's gaze fell on the gravel road in front of him. Silence spread, and after a long time, he still shook his head. "No, don't come up with ideas randomly." After saying that, he hesitated for a moment, then raised his hand and carefully touched my face. The movement was so slight that I almost doubted that the cold touch just now was my imagination. I turned my head and looked into his eyes. Lu Sun softened his tone. "If you want to see me, I can also go to find you. There's no need to live together necessarily." "Well, it doesn't matter. There's no need to rush. Anyway, it's just a matter of time." I nodded. "I'll come to find you next weekend." 17. By the next weekend, I got ready to go out early in the morning. Xiaobai chased after me and circled around me. I bent down and stroked the fur on its back. "Be good and stay home by yourself. I can't take you with me today." After getting in the car, the driver asked me where I was going today. I looked out the window and said calmly, "Go to Nanshan Sanatorium." The driver had worked for the He family for many years and naturally knew who lived in Nanshan Sanatorium. He paused for a long time. In the end, he said nothing and silently turned the car around. When I arrived at the sanatorium, the staff member led me forward while talking to me with a worried look on her face. "The one in room 307, Fanny Lua. Her condition has been very poor recently. She doesn't remember things from the past and doesn't know who she is. In the past 2 days, she can't even recognize the nurses who are familiar with her." Having said this, she paused for a moment before continuing. "Maybe she won't recognize you either." I nodded to express my gratitude, indicating that I understood. "Actually, it might be better if she didn't recognize me. My mother has always hated Hisuejo and also hated me. In the first year or two after moving into the sanatorium, she became very quiet and hardly talked to anyone. Only when she saw me would her emotions occasionally spiral out of control suddenly. She smashed things wildly, crying and telling me to get out. Later, she lit a fire to burn the words she had written. Those were clearly the efforts of her youth. In my previous life, until her death, I never knew why she hated me so much. I just considered that she had no relatives left in the world except me, so I often went to the sanatorium to secretly take a look at her. In the first few years when I was with Lu Sun, my mother was still alive. I often took the time to run to the sanatorium. Every time I went to see her and came back, I couldn't fall asleep. Lu Sun would stay up with me, holding me in his arms and staying awake with me all night. When it was almost dawn and I was drowsy and just fell asleep, I would soon wake up suddenly, talking nonsense. Lu Sun would pat my back, lower his eyes and kiss my forehead, and say softly, "It's okay, you, go to sleep, I'm here." At that time, I didn't know why Fanny Lua hated me. Now I know. Hisuejo likes men. He has never liked her. All the former affection was fake. Saying that he would marry her and be good to her for a lifetime was also fake. It was just a charade he put on for the sake of carrying on the family line. Fanny Lua had been alone for many years. When she met Hisuejo, she thought she had met the redemption of her life. How could she accept it? The lover, love, marriage, and family that she had finally obtained. It turned out to be a complete scam. So, what am I? I am the product of this scam. I was born with original sin. My steps stopped at the door of room 307 at the end of the corridor. The staff member left me the key and turned to leave. I slowly pushed the door open, and my hand was actually a little trembling. The lights were not turned on in the room, and the thick curtains were drawn. Not even a sliver of light coming in. Fanny Lua's long hair was disheveled, and she was sitting alone. When the door opened, she turned her head and saw me. Her gaze remained fixed, as if nailed to me. After a long time, she suddenly let out a sharp laugh, her shoulders shaking with laughter. Pointing her finger in my direction, she kept laughing, and her voice was hoarse and unpleasant. "You're here. Why are you here? Where's Hisuejo?" Her tone suddenly rose. "Speak. Why don't you speak? Where's Hisuejo? He never comes to see me. Is he already dead? Why haven't you died yet? Your eyes look so much like his. When I gave birth to you, I should have strangled you to death. He's not a good person. You're his child. You're just like him, like a trapped animal." She struggled and wailed in despair. I closed my eyes and took a step forward. She became even more crazy, screaming and smashing the vase on the table next to her. The vase shattered into pieces, and the gorgeous flowers in the vase fell to the ground along with it. Fanny Lua picked up a piece of broken porcelain and pointed it at me. You're a little beast. Why haven't you died yet? You should have died with Hisuejo long ago. Don't come any closer." There was a call bell installed on the wall. As long as I pressed the bell, the staff would come in, but I neither pressed the bell nor paid any attention to Fanny Lua's curses. I walked forward slowly and finally stood in front of her and squatted down slowly. The broken porcelain pierced into my palm, and immediately, bright red blood kept oozing out. Fanny Lua let go of her hand in a panic and stepped back. I took a deep breath. For the first time in both this life and the previous life, I reached out and gently hugged her. "I can't die," I said. "There are people in this world that I care about very much. If he leaves me, he won't be able to survive. But I promise you, Hisuejo, he definitely won't live through this year. What he owes you, he should pay back." 18. I don't remember how I left the sanatorium that day and how I got to the downstairs of the dilapidated tube-shaped building where Lu Sun is currently living. It was already dark when I arrived. I wanted to take out my phone to send a message to Lu Sun, but my eyes went dark in waves, and I couldn't see the words clearly at all. I could only stumble forward blindly. The girl who gave me a love letter in class a few days ago said to me, "I understand why you rejected my love letter. You are gay, you only like boys, right?" No. At that time, I looked at her, shook my head, and smiled. "I only like Lucien, I only like Lucien. In fact, he is the only relative I have left." The lights in the alley were in disrepair and extremely dim. Now that my eyes were not in good condition, the visibility was made even worse. I don't know how long I walked. Suddenly, a door in front opened, and a little light from the room shone out. There was a person standing in the light, with a handsome and tall figure. It was Lucien. I quickened my pace and walked over as if grabbing at a life-saving straw. But when I was about to touch him, I retracted my hand. I heard my own hoarse and weak voice. "Lucien, are you real?" The light and shadow kept flickering. The picture of Lucien committing suicide by jumping into the sea in front of me kept repeating uncontrollably in my mind. In front of me, was he really still there? Had I really seen Lucien again? My body couldn't stop shaking. I painfully raised my hand and carefully wanted to give Lucien a hug. He seemed to want to reach out and push me away at first, but then suddenly stopped his movement. It was completely silent all around. Lucien's voice, filled with disbelief and a bit of a tremor, sounded, Are you crying?" 19. Lucien asked me to sit down on the steps properly and put his coat on me. I sat on the steps, staring blankly at the raindrops that were about to fall but hadn't yet, hanging from the eaves. Not long after, Lucien came back. He was holding wound cleaning medicine, cotton swabs, and band-aids in his hands. I looked down at my palm, which was still bleeding. Lucien squatted down, took my hand, and treated the wound for me. When the medicine was applied, it hurt a bit, and I took a light breath. Lucien stopped his movement, looked up at me, and asked, "Does it hurt a lot?" After a pause, he raised one hand to cover my eyes. I was confused. I closed my eyes and was stunned for a long time. Suddenly, I laughed and said, "What are you doing?" After a long while, he replied, "Don't let you see. If you don't see it, it won't hurt." I was speechless. After being dazed for a moment, I stretched out my other uninjured hand and groped to touch Lucien's face. He turned his head slightly. Considering my wound, he couldn't avoid it. I pushed my luck and started to rub his warm and cool lips with my fingertips. I asked him again, "Lucien, tell me, okay, do you like me?" This question was too straightforward. He obviously stiffened all over and didn't say a word. I curled my lips and smiled, and continued, "What do you mean by not speaking? If you don't speak, I'll take it that you don't like me." It didn't matter if he didn't like me. Anyway, there was plenty of time in the future. It didn't matter if he never liked me, as long as he was still alive. I then closed my eyes, thinking that the topic was over. After a very long time, he suddenly spoke again and said softly, "No." 20. At the beginning of July, a serious traffic accident occurred on Binjiang Expressway. There were a total of 3 victims, Lucien's adoptive parents and my heartless biological father. He Suizhou died. I wasn't particularly sad. I just told the staff at Nanshan Sanatorium to make sure to tell Fang Yilua this news. Just like in the previous life, Lucien still handled the funerals of his adoptive parents alone. On the day of the burial, it rained a little. I went to the cemetery to pick him up. The car stopped at the entrance of the cemetery. I watched through the window as Lucien came out of the cemetery, holding a black umbrella. His face still had that calm look. Without much expression, he got into the car, and I leaned over and casually ruffled his hair. "Lucien," I called his name and said softly, "You still have me. I'll always be here. I'll always love you." End of the main text. Extra chapters. 1. On the day of Lucien's 27th birthday, I rushed to finish my work and specifically returned to City A early. Lucien is a person with little sense of ceremony. Like in previous years, he isn't very interested in celebrating his birthday, but for me, this is a very happy thing. At least it shows that Lucien has safely and smoothly spent another year. I pinched his face and told him to sit down quickly. Then I brought the cake with candles in front of him and said coldly, "Blow out the candles and make a wish. Say that you will love me forever." He pursed his lips, rarely. He didn't resist, he just looked at me and said in a low voice, "Wishes won't come true if you say them out loud." I looked at him, "Then don't say it out loud, make the wish in your heart." Lucien closed his eyes. After a few seconds, he opened his eyes. Then, without any warning, he suddenly leaned over and his lips gently touched mine. It seemed like a kiss. I was stunned all of a sudden. Lu Sun said, "Just now, I didn't make any wish. The thing you mentioned doesn't need to be wished for to come true. Leave the wish for you." He propped his chin and looked at me, with a layer of smile in the corners of his eyes and eyebrows. He asked me, "What's your wish?" I stared at him for a long time and didn't say anything. The wish I made that day was that Lu Sun could live a long and healthy life, too. At the company's annual meeting, everyone was required to write a New Year's blessing card and hand it in. I secretly looked at Lu Sun's card. He wrote, "I knew you would peak. I love you. 3. In the previous life." I casually asked Lu Sun, "Do you think this world is good?" At that time, Lu Sun smiled and said to me, "This world is not good, but you are good, only you are good." 4. Sometimes I feel like I'm like the dark moss struggling to grow in the narrow and damp gaps between stone steps. Obviously, I can survive without the nourishment of the blazing sun, but the only remaining air is unexpectedly taken away from me. Fortunately, as fate would have it, I was given a chance to start over. I gritted my teeth as I finished reading the suicide note and put the letter away. The world is full of complications. You must always love me. 5. When I first returned to China in my previous life and first met Lu Sun, he was fighting with someone. This person had really bad manners at that time, constantly swearing at the other person's family. Seeing that the conflict, which had finally eased a bit, was about to intensify again, I quickly stepped forward and grabbed Lu Sun's hand, pulling him behind me a little. "That's enough, shut up." Lu Sun gets angry at everyone, but surprisingly, he listens to me. After being pulled by me, he lowered his eyes and looked at his hand, and actually calmed down. 6. I woke up again suddenly. In the dream, there was a pitch black and vast sea, with strong winds and high waves, deep and dangerous. Lu Sun, with his back to me, jumped down without saying a word. Without even a moment of hesitation, cold sweat slid down from my forehead hair, and my heartbeat thudded heavily into my chest. I sat on the bed a little dazedly, thinking why it wasn't me who died. A hand reached over from the side, touching my back along my waist and patting me gently twice. "You, wake up." Lu Sun turned on the light, sat up, and hugged me into his arms. "That was a dream. I'm here."